right.
Intro me, Danny.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Everything Iconic. I am here with the most iconic human, our leader, Andy Cohen. Andy, how are you doing today?
Danny, I love the sound of your voice.
Thank you. Andy, I feel like...
Thanks for having me.
I feel nervous. I'm nervous and excited.
Oh, thank you. Well, those are the best kind of interviews.
You know, I gotta say, before we get into all of my questions, I was fortunate enough to be at Watch What Happens Live and bartend before the whole shutdown and everything happened. And you were so nice to me. And I was so incredibly nervous and excited. And you were just like sort of overly kind, more than I could have even anticipated kind. And I really just appreciated that because I was so nervous.
Oh,
and
thank you. Who were the guests?
It was Tom Sandoval and Adam Pally.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Yes.
But I was so nervous and the whole staff was so excited and it really felt like they really like you, which made me like, you know, I was kind of watching that. I'm like, let's see, like, do they like Andy? You know, like what's the real deal here? But it seemed like they liked you.
Out, I'm not a horrible person. And I've been around a lot of horrible people. And, you know, I was a producer for many years behind the scenes. So I saw a lot of horrible people and I was treated horribly by people. So it was a good experience for me when I finally got my own show to say, okay, well, maybe it would be good if you're not a horrible person.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I've
by
been
nature, I'm not a horrible person. I
could tell right away, and I felt like I've been to a lot of talk shows, and you can tell right off the bat like what the culture, the vibe is. But everyone there is also like very funny, very warm, and they just have an affinity for you. So that was nice.
Thank you. We have a great team, and we have very little turnover. People don't really leave our show. It's once they're there, they stay, and it's a pretty happy place. I mean, they're you know, we get to swim in this insanity, you know, every day, which is fun.
It's so fun. I've interviewed so many of these housewives, and I can't imagine like what a reunion would be like for you because the energy of a housewife is very intense. Like,
yes,
I just interviewed.
Sometimes better in some occasions, sometimes better on TV in an edited format than, you know, in an extended play situation.
Do you just leave those reunions with like your head spinning though? Like
I do. I really, and I have to say the Zoom reunions have been especially tiring. That Beverly Hills reunion this year, I was really upset after. I was just upset. And of course, we're also isolated right now that typically what I will do is I will really debrief with the other producers and, you know, even I'll get in the car to go to wherever I'm going to meet people for drinks or whatever, but I need a really good debrief. And there I was doing these Zoom reunions in a room alone and then going back to my house alone, you know, just being alone, and it was not satisfying of a decompress after the Zoom ones, especially.
Is there a plan to do more Zoom? Like, will Potomac be Zoom or will that be in person?
We are hoping Potomac is happening pretty soon. And the way I think at this moment, it looks like it's going to be in person, but there was a hiccup a couple days ago where maybe it wasn't. And so I'm hopeful that it'll be in person. I do not aspire to do more Zoom unions, although I think that I was very upset when I found out the Atlanta reunion was going to be on Zoom, which was the first one that we did. But I have to say, and I'm giving up to all of the production companies. Yeah, I mean, there's something fun about seeing 4 boxes at once, and you're getting reaction shots from people that you maybe wouldn't have gotten. And those reunions are really built on watching other people react and roll their eyes or do whatever. And so there is something, I think, our teams have done a brilliant job, I think, in post-production on the reunions. Yeah.
The Atlanta one was so fun too because we still had sort of the pomp and circumstance of like them getting all dressed up, and then
the pomp and circumstance.
But you're right. But they were like at home, in these ball gowns. And it was like so fucking crazy, but amazing.
Yes.
Okay, I have questions about every franchise, but first
I will talk to you about anything you want, and you have me for as long as you want. So
oh my God, that makes me nervous.
I want this to be meaningful for you.
It's already meaningful. Andy, I already feel good about it. Do you follow that Instagram account, Dumois? I don't know if I'm saying it right. Dumois?
I just became familiar with it.
They posted something the other day about Watch What Happens Live, and I wanted to get your take on it. They said that Anna Kendrick is banned from Watch What Happens Live, and I just wonder, is she banned? Is anyone banned from coming on the show?
There are a few people that are privately banned between me and my staff.
Right.
No, Anna Kendrick is not one of them. She's been on a few times. But I mean, it's so random. It's a very short and random list, I have to say, for no reason that anyone would ever suspect.
Yeah. Okay, so Salt Lake City, I watched the premiere last night, and what
did you think? I mean, why, and by the way, that's why I'm here. I was like, I want to do something special for when Salt Lake City comes out, and I was like, you know what? I want to go on Danny's show. It's not every day that we bring in a new city, and so I'm excited that you saw it, and the problem is, what are you going to lie to me and be like, I hated it? But I think that you would love it.
No, I legitimately loved it. And I'll be honest with you, I went in sort of, I don't know if my expectations were low, but I just don't know what I sort of expected. And then I was blown away because I loved the world of it. Like, it's such a unique kind of look inside this Mormon world. And crazy things were happening. Like, I don't want to spoil, but the end of the episode, I was like giddy, Andy. Like, when they were fighting about, something insane about a hospital and legs.
Right. Yeah.
I haven't felt that joy in a housewife. That was like a unique thing, because we've seen so much on Housewives. It's like, every season with a franchise or a new franchise, it's like we want that sort of table flip moment, and it's hard to top a table flip moment these days.
It's hard to top a table flip moment, and in my mind, the best Housewives disagreements are ones that are very frivolous about kind of nothing in a weird way, about a bow on a cake or things like that. I think those are really fun.
That bow cake, the Orange County bow,
Orange County
Andy, the best
great.
TV.
Really good. I'm very excited about Salt Lake, and I think that's there is no great need for us to do other cities, I think, in my mind. But then every so often you stumble upon this world and you're like, wait a minute, this would be a kind of, if you stripped away Salt Lake City and you stripped away the Mormonism, then it might be like, okay, well, what is this and how is this differentiating? But it really is a different world, and there are some unique situations happening. There are some great side characters. There are layers.
There's a woman named Sarah in the premiere, and I feel like she's going to pop back in at some point, because she kind of entered very crazy, and I was like, oh, I like her. And Mary as a human is shocking. I mean, just like everything that was coming out of her mouth.
Mary's backstory is also quite unique. She is married, of course, to her step-grandfather, and there will be more on that. And I that was certainly something titillating for me.
It was so good. I'm doing the drive-in premiere. I'm at the Rose Bowl here in LA, and I'm very excited for people. After I saw it, I was like, now I'm really excited for people to see it, because it was
good. That makes me
great.
Really
happy. And I sort of feel like Heather, I don't know if this will be true, but I felt like Heather was sort of the like stable one, or like the more grounded presence.
Okay. She's got a really interesting backstory too. I mean, she really, you see her coming to grips with her relationship with the Mormon Church, which she was all in on. And I think her family is considered pioneers. I don't know if that's the right word in the religion, but she's at a crossroads in her time in the religion. She's divorced, and it's an interesting journey for her.
I like it. And it's a very diverse cast, which I know so many people have been clamoring for,
Yeah,
which is
and
great.
surprising. I mean, I was so excited. I mean, the diversity in the cast was such a gift to us at the very beginning. And then I think also when we announced it at BravoCon Salt Lake City, I think people could only be expecting, oh, great, another group of lily white women. But it is absolutely nothing of the sort, which is really a win for that. And that's that's been our bad for the last, for the run of these shows.
How do you feel about I know you've addressed this a million times, but you just said it's our bad. And so what does the future look like? We've heard some announcements.
Yeah. I mean, the future is that we need to diversify the shows is the future. I mean, there's just there's no other response. And I think that we were very precious for some time about diversifying New York. There was someone that we were really close to that was well known in New York social circles and had a very big life. And she was someone that I knew personally. And
was it Wendy?
Bethany knew.
Wendy Williams?
No, it was not Wendy Williams.
Okay.
And we came very close. And there was Luann has put a few women up that didn't work out for one reason or another. I think Sonia had a friend that wasn't ultimately right. So we've also been wanting to be really careful because we wanted that person to succeed. We don't want a one and done. But yeah, so here we are. And
I thought Jules could have had a really good second season. I sort of like Jules. I know I don't know what the circumstance was why she didn't come back.
Jules,
remember Jules? Wasn't she? She was Asian, wasn't she? Asian?
Oh yes.
Yeah, wasn't she? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because I remember her tagline. It was like a Jew and an Asian walk in a bar, and then came me. So stupid.
You're right. Yeah, I think what happened is the divorce. There were some.
Yeah, there were behind the scenes
There were a
stuff.
few layers there. Yes.
You guys did it years back that before they were Housewives special with Luann. Why didn't we get more of those? It was so fun to see her at the TJ Maxx.
I have to say, as we delve, Lou has an incredible backstory, which she is, quite flagrantly likes to remind people of. And as a matter of fact, we're shooting next season now, and it came up again. Her past as an Italian presenter, but I think there are not a lot of housewives who have the intense backstories that Lou had. And I think that was the reason why we wound up not doing more. It was just like, that was a pretty incredible story.
Yeah, it was so good, and I think that's why we wanted more. But Luann, you're right; she has a crazy backstory. I'm working on sort of like a podcast documentary-ish, I guess you could call it, about Scary Island because that's my favorite in terms of like the Bravo universe. Yeah. And I want to ask you.
I'll tell you who you should have on, by the way.
Who?
But
Matt. Okay,
yeah, Matt.
Matt Anderson, right? Yeah. I was just talking to him, and I think he might come on. But you get the cuts of these episodes, like before you see any trailers or anything, you're getting the cuts of these episodes. So what's going through your mind? Can you remember back then of like getting the Scary Island cuts?
Well, usually with something like Scary Island, I'm getting the phone calls. For certain cities, I get what's called hot sheets. And so I just am going through hot sheets of what we're filming in New York and Beverly Hills and Atlanta. And so that's just basically a summary of everything that's shot and everything that happens. And they're just delicious reads most of the time. And so for Scary Island, actually, it was when I was hearing of it was just as it was happening, because there were questions about how Kelly was doing on the trip. And so those were phone calls and about her, should she leave did she want to leave? There were conversations about her leaving the island, basically. And so then when I got well, let me give you a different example, because the I'm up here, you're down there moment was something that I remember. Bethany called me, and at that time, now I think we know each other better, and it's many years later, but at that time it would be very unusual for Bethany to call me after something had happened in filming. But I remember she called me and said, "You're just not going to believe what just happened. I mean, we were at the Brass Monkey and this thing, and I'm pretty sure she told me she was better than me." And I mean, like, well, what do you mean? And I went in the office the next day, and then I was calling, I think I was calling Jen O'Connell, and I was like, what happened? Like, so that was something that we may have even requested the footage early, because I was like, I've got to see this. And so I remember that was a moment where when I got the cut, and I was watching more cuts at that time. I was watching every cut of every episode. So that was 3 or 4 cuts that I was doing notes on of every episode. Now I only do notes on 1 cut per episode. Because I don't have the bandwidth, and I have a different job and whatever. But yeah, that was a situation where when I got the footage, it was just glorious. And Scary Island too. My moment of Scary Island, and this was one that I got a lot of calls about from Jill and different people. But when Jill showed up unannounced, and I knew it was happening, I had heard, well, Jill's just gonna go down there, and I was like, oh my God, you're kidding me. That was really exciting for me. That for me was the pinnacle when she showed up, and then they turned her away. Hi. Turned her away, and that moment with she and Ramona in the driveway, I felt so bad for Jill in that moment. I really, it was something.
It was great
seen
TV.
Anything like that. Incredible television.
Yeah.
Incredible.
I feel like you should auction off some of those old hot sheets if you have them. I don't know if you have them in like email or something, but it would be so fun to see like back what the producers were sending you, and it was great. I would love more footage from Scary Island. Like, I feel like there had to have been some like secret footage. I was actually talking, maybe it was to Matt or somebody. I was saying that nowadays I feel like there would have been cell phone footage of Kelly at the airport when she runs into Jill, or like that kind of infamous moment. But apparently, was there nothing from that whole time? Or
no, we were not shooting. I think what would have happened today is, and I think there was a producer with Kelly who went back with her, I think. Today, we would have hopped out the iPhone, and we weren't shooting stuff on the gun like that, like we are today.
So back then, season 1, 2, 3 of these shows, were the crews smaller because it wasn't what it is now, or
I don't know the answer to that, but I'm gonna say that they must have been. I mean, certainly, I think we light differently now. I think what happened is that you see a difference in some of the shows. I think Evolution really notched up the production value when they started shooting Beverly Hills from the get-go. And then I think that then carried over. I think we were a little more run and gun on some of the other shows. And then I think then the other shows got better at... I just think the scenes were looking better. I mean, a trope of New York, you'll notice on New York, there's 2 things that we always do on all the cities. One is we always show them ordering their meal. We always show, and that's been from the very beginning, like an early thing where we were fascinated with what are they ordering. It just seems sociologically interesting. And you could always tell something by what they were ordering. And I remember a scene in early Jersey where Jacqueline Larita's family went to a diner, and I think either Ashley or Jacqueline ordered a steak, and I was like, ordering a steak in a diner, like that's
on camera,
so odd. Yeah. And the other thing is, in New York, we love a Ramona walking down. We love any Ramona walking establishing shot. Like, I love shots of Ramona walking down the street. Like, they're just always funny to me. I don't know why. Ramona walking into a restaurant, trying to get it together. So we can never tire of those.
Yeah. Is Heather coming back? She's been spotted filming. I love my Heather Holla Thompson.
You do? Are you?
Yeah.
For Heather? Oh, good.
I do. Yeah.
I think you will be seeing Heather next season on New York.
So my guess is not a main housewife, maybe a friend of, but at least a guest star. That's my guess.
You will be seeing her.
I can't wait. Okay, Dorinda. We're losing Dorinda. I don't know what we're going to do there without Dorinda. How are you feeling? You said you're kind of getting some of the information of the filming now. How do you think it's going?
It's going great. It's going really, really great. These women in New York never cease to amaze me. It's really great. The Dorinda, that was a very tough call. She didn't have a good season. She will admit it. She wasn't in a good place. And, it's always hard to make a call like that. The whole thing is like a chess game, a sociological chess game. And every decision is pretty, we talk everything out, and it's based on many different factors, things that are going on camera, off camera. You're looking at how it will affect things for the season, how it will affect things with other housewives, to take one out of the mix. How does this rejigger the puzzle? Right. And so it wasn't easy. I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling to this.
No.
It wasn't an easy decision, and I do hope eventually that she will come back. And yeah,
I'm gonna miss her. I think
I will too. I will too. Yeah.
She had a rough season, but also she's just given us so much throughout the years.
She has. Well, how do you feel about Tamra and Vicky being gone?
I was calling for Tamra's to go, and
calling for that.
I was calling for that. And then after it happened, I find is
sometimes when people call for it and then it happens,
right,
it shocks their system.
Right. That's exactly what happened to me.
A lot of people were calling for it, and then they're like, well, but wait a minute.
Right. No, as soon as I watched the premiere, I was like, man, I missed that woman. And I hated her for the longest time, but now I want her back.
Right.
Do you think she'll come back? I think she even has said on social media, she's like, you can see me again. I feel like she's hyping it up. She'll come back.
I hope she'll. Tamra, for me, for a very long time, was the perfect housewife. She just, there was just always a lot going on with her. There are two buckets. There's the personal story bucket, and she always had a lot of personal story going. And then there's the bucket of how they're relating with the other women, and she always had both.
I think sometimes it's nice to have a break too. Like, it might be nice if she does come back. Maybe we'll all feel, a lot of us miss her a little bit.
Yeah,
so we might want her back.
Happy to see someone as opposed to calling for their dismissal.
Right.
You know what I mean?
We talked about Heather, and I feel like she's a housewife that was interesting to me because people always DM me and send me all this stuff about housewives. And I feel like public opinion on her changed years later after she left. Because I feel like the fans didn't always necessarily love her when she was on the show. And now looking back, I think we appreciate her a little bit more. And do you notice that?
I don't know about her specific. I did notice that when she showed up, there seemed to be a lot of love on Twitter, and I don't know how that translates to anything else. But I think that what is really good in many cities, and it's one of the reasons that Elisa Rinna or a Dorinda worked so great right when they stepped in, is that they can speak the language and they know the other women. And so I think at this point, Heather has now known these women for, I don't know, 8, 9 years. I can't remember when she started, but now she really speaks their language. She's not afraid to stand up to them. She knows them. And so I think that there is a great benefit in bringing legacy cast members back. That it's like, listen, I was always a big soap fan, and it's one of the reasons why I love the Housewives and why it brings me joy to keep this thing going as long as we can. And I think that one of the things they did on soaps was, oh my God, guess what? Nina's coming back to All My Children. How exciting. Guess what? I didn't love Nina when she was on originally, but then when she left, I kind of missed her. And then when she came back, I was excited to see her. Yeah, maybe I got sick of her again eventually, but it's exciting to see her. They're like your old friends. So I view former Housewives the same way.
And on Orange County, Gina Keogh did the narration, and I feel like that was such a fun sort of Easter egg for fans of the show. Was it always the idea to get Gina, or did you guys try to get someone like Vicky, or how did that work?
No, I think Vicky. I think that would have been rude to ask Vicky, and Vicky would have said, "Give me $1 million and I'll do it." And so I think that would have been rude. And it was, it's funny. The show began as a result of Desperate Housewives. And weirdly, Desperate Housewives comes up like 5 times this season on the Housewives of Orange County. And I keep marveling at it. I'm like, it took us 15 years to reference Desperate Housewives on OC. And I think we were just trying to establish OC as something different. First, and we did, obviously, but it's just random that it comes up so much this season.
Have you guys?
I love Gina, by the way, and I love the OGs. I love Lori. Lori is my jam.
Yeah. Speaking of Desperate Housewives, have you guys ever reached out to any of those cast members? Like, have you ever tried to get a Terry Hatcher or a Nicolette Sheridan or one of those people on the show?
We haven't. I think that Nicolette would be very problematic. Sometimes if you toss around the idea of bringing in an actual enemy of one of your current cast members, you run the risk of the current cast member saying, okay, well, then I'm not coming back, if that's the way you want to go. And we've had that situation with other housewives. I think that there were times that we would talk about bringing back X person, and then someone who is still on the show would say, well, that's fine. You can choose between them and me because I'm not coming back. And there are 2 people that are very firm. There are 4 that are firmly sticking out in my mind.
Oh my God. Now I want to know what the backstory is with them. Orange County, there's been some backlash online. There's certain podcasts aren't covering the Orange County right now. And I just wonder what your take on all that is. Because I found it a very tough thing, because even on this show, I'm not recapping it mostly because I don't cover every show on this podcast. I like to do interviews and kind of change things up all the time. But I heard from so many people on both sides, like, you cannot talk about this. Don't ever speak of it. We're not watching it. And then after the season premiere, it's like, how dare you not
do it? I know it's a good season, I have to say. I think people have always celebrated Kelly for her outspokenness. And by the way, we have very outspoken, polarizing people all over Bravo who are usually celebrated for that. And, people being celebrated for bad behavior and shocking comments. But, there's been a reckoning of sorts, and the line is being drawn by some fans as to what they'll accept and what they won't. And that is, that's entirely their right. I mean,
it seems tough, I would imagine, on the other side of this, because it is a reality show and we do like messy people. And that's sort of what this channel was built on in a lot of ways.
It's true. I mean,
and there is a line, and I think we're all kind of thinking like, well, what do I feel good about watching? But I imagine it must be very tough on the other side to be like, well, what do we do here?
Well, it's interesting. It's like, oh, okay, so this is it's like,
This
okay,
is too far, but
you
that's
thought
not.
you thought this horrible thing was hilarious, and this horrible thing isn't, and that's fine. Listen, everyone has a line, and you can only respect it.
Are you involved with the Vanderpump Rules casting decisions, or that you're not?
I am happy to tell you that I'm not.
That must be a relief. Because
It is.
speaking of these casting things, I feel like it was confusing for fans of like, well, this is the line, or where is the line? You know what I'm saying? Because it was like there was a public statement about Stassi and Kristen, and then a lot of people were like, well, it wasn't Jax doing similar behavior, and so I think it was confusing for fans of like where the line is exactly. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Listen, I think that it's always an exploration of the line. I think that we're all figuring out what the line is,
Right. So yes. where do you think that show goes next, or where would you like to see? No, Vanderpump Rules.
Oh, Vanderpump. Well, I think it's interesting because I think they're going to listen. I think that people were really pinging on what was real and what was maybe a leap about the last season. And I think that what has been so brilliant about Vanderpump Rules and why that show is so hard for all the other people who've tried to do it, to replicate it. You can't say, oh, I'm going to open a bar and do a Vanderpump Rules type show. These people all knew each other for so long. They all worked for Lisa for so long. And Lisa, to her credit, kept saying to Bravo, you guys have no idea what I have going on here. And it's all these hot people, and they're all sleeping with each other, and they're all ex-boyfriends, and they love and they fight and they love and whatever. And so that's hard to replicate. And I think that it seemed like people were pinging against, well, does X person really work there? And why are they going to Lisa's to make pride signs? And so I think, what was your question? Where do they go?
Where do you think it goes from here?
Well, I think where it goes from here is, I think, look, I think they're going to have real drama built into her reopening this restaurant after a pandemic. And so I actually think, in an odd way, that's going to create a lot of story that is absolutely real, and they'll be able to lean into it. And frankly, Stassi and Kristen didn't work there anymore. And they were both brilliant characters on television. And so, I think it'll be interesting to see who's there and who's not and what's really happening. And I think they'll have a better time doing that. And there'll be a lot of built-in stuff that's actually happening.
Do you ever anticipate more spin-offs in that world, like a Vegas Garden? Have you guys explored that? Or
I don't know if they've explored Vegas. I think that, again, the thing about Vanderpump Rules that works is that they all have that history. You just can't. The history that they have gives you a rooting interest. It's like if it's 10 people who were just put together to work at a restaurant, it's like I think it's a little less exciting.
Right. Okay, I want to move on to Potomac. I think this season is one of like the best of any Housewives franchise. It's so good, and I was trying to think about why I like it, and I feel like it's because allegiances sort of shift every episode. Like we as a viewer are thinking, oh, we're on team this person, and then the next episode we feel differently. And I thought it was interesting. I don't know if I read this or heard it in an interview somewhere, but I think I read that Bravo tried to present the Monique and Candace footage as accurately as they could without sort of taking a side. And I wondered...
We always try to do that. I mean, we always try not to... There are two things we do with an edit. One is we wink at the audience. It's Kim Zolciak saying she loves fitness, and then you cut away to the Solo cup and the cigarette. I mean, that's an easy thing. But then... there are other times where, we absolutely try not to editorialize. And that was something that in early years, people would say sometimes horrible things, and we would say, well, that's on them and we're just going to show it, like, but with the fight, we did something that we really almost have not done. Usually we cut away from something like that because it's not something that we really want. It's not something we ever want to happen. We don't like it. We don't think it really belongs on this franchise. And so in this case, we actually leaned into it because there were so many people saying, why don't you show it? And also it became such a point of contention for the rest of the season that we were like, we were kind of artfully cutting around a lot of stuff. And then we were like, we're going to show it.
So when you were getting those cuts, did you find yourself taking a side? Well,
I learned something very valuable at the Atlanta reunion when Kenya and Portia had their altercation. I was the only one in the room that didn't see it coming when Portia snapped at Kenya. Everyone else was like, dude, I saw it
of course
from a mile away.
Yeah.
Right. They were like, she provoked her. I was the guy that went and sent Portia home. I was like, you have to go home. You got physical. This is wrong, And what was interesting to me was that the opinion in the room was it was Kenya's fault. And the opinion amongst a lot of viewers was that it was Kenya's fault. So when I heard about it and when I watched it, that incident really caused me to say, well, what happened before it? How did this didn't come out of nowhere, and was it provoked? And so I don't know what your question was, but I sure hope that answered it.
I was basically saying, whose side are you on, Candace?
Oh, okay, well,
but you don't have to answer that. Yeah. What do you make of Wendy? I love Wendy as an addition.
I think Wendy is great.
Me too.
I love her, and listen, I love a politically active housewife. And so there's an old clip, not that old, of Wendy, who Wendy going up against Kayleigh McEnany or whatever her last name is from, Trump, the woman with all the vowels, who lies on the podium all the time. Wendy going at it with her, I think on Fox News. And, it just made me very happy. I think Wendy's great. She
feels like classically Housewives to me. Like, she's not afraid to sort of get in the mix. She's got a little bit of a bizarre quality to her. I like her a lot. I'm a fan. Potomac has really had the same cast for a while. Do you imagine it shaking up next season, or are we keeping it because it's perfect?
I think also that's one of the reasons why Potomac is so great. I think it's great, and I think we're in a really great run with Jersey right now. It's a great mix. We have brought new people in over the years. I think it's still interesting to see how they're relating to each other. And so I love this Jersey cast so much. And I love what's happening in Potomac. And, Dallas is similar too. I mean, it's a really good group.
Jersey and Atlanta, when can we expect to see them?
I don't remember, is the truth of the matter. I think Atlanta's coming before the year is out, I think.
Yeah.
Because I'm watching it.
And how is it? Is it good?
It's...
Andy, can you send me these cuts? I just want to watch them too. Can I watch them?
I really can't, Danny.
What about Jersey? How are you liking Jersey? I'll be honest with you, because people send me little tips and stuff, people on production or whatever. And half the time I don't know who's sending me what or what's real. But some of the things that I've heard about Jersey that have not been reported by any of the blogs or anything were shocking to me. Shocking. No, I'm not. No, that's what I'm saying. I try not to. Thank you
for your discretion. Yeah.
Because I'm excited, and I think it's more fun to watch the Housewives without knowing.
It is, and it's so annoying to me when
shit
gets leaked or whatever. I'm like, this isn't fun. I mean, the fun of you really kind of don't want to know what happens. That's been a real problem with Instagram and with social media in general, where sometimes people can't control themselves.
Yeah, I mean, and if I hear something really good, like I will not tell anyone, because I'm like, I just want to experience all of us to experience that all together. But so going back to Jersey, I have heard some things that have not been anywhere reported that got me really excited for the season. And
good.
So that's not spoilery, right? That's just
that's a tease. That's what we call a tease, Danny. By the way, I love it that what is behind you is the cover of Us magazine, which I still have. Is it on my bulletin? It was on my bulletin board at Bravo for many years, the Kelly, Jill, Bethany cover. And then you've got the Mariah book, which is
Andy, your book
is an Andy Cohen book.
Can I thank you for that book? It's truly like my new Bible.
Really good,
it's fantastic. I'm
so glad.
She's my number one human. Like, I'm the biggest Mariah fan. Yeah, like I worship her. And I had I've been so excited about this book for so many since it was announced. Mariah had teased it over the years. She always says my memoirs, and it still, I thought, was fantastic. I thought it was. Good. There was the fun, juicy gossip stuff that I imagined you were probably pushing her to do some of that stuff.
Pushed for a lot. There was stuff that was taken out through the run, but there's a lot in there. And frankly, this is her story to tell. And so I just when I first met with her said, there are so many bullshit books that come out that artists write, and just like, this has to not be a bullshit book. Like, and not only is it not, it's so beautifully written and so in her voice. I mean, it is a literary book, which shouldn't ultimately be a surprise, because she's a great songwriter and she's a great writer. So,
and the audiobook too. I listened to the audiobook and read the book, and the audiobook to me was revolutionary in a lot of ways, to be able to hear her in her own voice singing certain songs that she wrote. I thought was just like so special. I can't recommend it enough. In terms of your books, like what other books can we expect from your book, Imprint?
Well, we've got one coming up from Bevy Smith. I don't know if you're familiar with Bevy Smith. She has a show on Radio Andy called
I miss Fashion Queens too. I loved Fashion Queens. I know. It was
Fashion Queens was so good. And there is another book that we haven't announced yet that you may have heard about that you're going to love. And I can't say
I think I do know what it is. Yeah, okay. I do know what it is. Yeah. That excites me, though. That excites me.
Good.
Okay. Miami revival. So early on in the pandemic, I'm leading this charge for Miami to come back. And
early on in the chase, I have been really trying to get Peacock to pick up Miami. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but, and I don't know where we are with that. I have to say there's been such a, the fans of Miami are still very vocal, and so I've been an advocate for Peacock bringing back Miami. I think Miami, as it was on Bravo, really suffered from Mama Elsa not being around in season 3. She was very sick. I think she was a more important part of that show than people realized. And the problem with the 3rd season was that the ratings were declining as it went on, and they went down for the reunion, which is usually the opposite of what happens. And I think that went, that went into the decision to not pick it up.
I miss it. It was so fun at the beginning of the pandemic. Bravo had been airing a lot of those old shows like NYC Prep, I think, and Gallery Girls. There was like a marathon day. It was really fun. Southern Charm, Thomas has said on social media that he appears or something.
I don't know. I'm not an EP of Southern Charm anymore, so I cannot tell you that.
I just watched. I'm switching gears very quickly here. I apologize.
Yeah, fine.
Below Deck. It's one of the biggest shows on the network, the Below Deck franchise.
It is a massive juggernaut hit, and it is a great show.
It's
and
so
I gotta
good.
tell you something. If Housewives fans are dogmatic, I have gotten really, like if people are mad at me about something that happens or doesn't happen at a Housewives reunion, it's one thing, but man, the Below Deck fans,
they hate at you,
they
Andy.
just want to spit roast me. Honestly, especially not this season, but last season. There was
with the bros or whatever,
huge Band-Aid on my face. Something horrible had happened to me that day that I will not disclose, but it happened to me, and I was like in the hospital, and then I went to do the Below Deck reunion. So it was not the best version of me on any stretch, and I'm not trying to say the dog ate my homework, but man, oh my God.
Well, and I think you talked about this maybe on Radio Andy or something, where it's not the same as Housewives, right? Like you're not getting
I don't
host the reunions.
Much information. Yes, which is not a cop out. I'm just saying. And so,
but it could be a little bit of a cop out, I think, because it's like you're hired to host the show, and so you might not know like every moment of footage the way you would a Housewives, where you've seen unedited cuts and stuff like that.
I'm coming at it from a different place, but that's no excuse. It's all
I'm making an excuse because I feel like people have been holding on to the Below Deck thing, and of course those men were monsters.
Oh
that's
God, oh God,
those men were monsters. I do believe
that. The other interesting thing is I do get other information from producers that maybe is stuff that I'm not saying that could also slant my production, my perspective on things, but still.
How are you feeling about Kate and Hannah being gone? Because I feel like they were really like the anchors of the series. And
I feel okay. I think that those, I think that the thing about that show is that it's about the format, and it's about the way that the people get along, and it's about the upstairs, downstairs. There's a lot happening on that show. So I actually think it's good, just in the same way that I think pulling people out of the Housewives sometimes, though it can be surprising and shocking, I think it's actually helpful to the show.
Kathy Hilton, what's the deal there?
Big Kath?
Big Kath. Are we going to see Big Kath?
You know what? Too soon.
I'm trying to get all the spoilers
on next season. I know, and you should.
But Beverly Hills we are getting another season. I think they have announced a new cast member, Christine, which I'm very excited about. Is that her name, Christine? Yeah. Where do you think Denise went wrong? I don't know if that's the right term. I'm not saying she did something wrong, but like, what do you think happened there?
I love Denise. I
do too.
Yeah. Where do I think it went wrong? I think there were two things. I didn't understand, and I talked to Lisa Rinna about this a month or two after the reunion, and I said, I don't understand why your level of anger seemed, and I said to her at one point, I think on the reunion, I said, what if, let's just say she isn't telling the truth because she's trying to protect her family? Like, so, well, what if that is the case? Like, who cares?
Right.
Why
can't we just move on?
Yeah. So we had that conversation, and the thing that and her anger was real. Lisa Rinna's anger was very, very real. And I think there was a part of it that had to do with maybe some production stuff of Denise not being around at the very end where they all were around, and then they feel like, well, what if we didn't show up for things, and but maybe in Denise's mind she was like, I'm not looking to confront. I didn't know Brandy was going to be at this thing, and I don't want to run into her, what. Look, there are a lot of, everybody has their own motives and feelings and emotions, and so I don't know. I think the women were really pissed at her for not being more transparent in their eyes. And I think in her eyes, she was saying this was her truth. And that was that. And she had to shoot Bold and the Beautiful the next morning.
She had that script ready to go, Andy.
She had that script ready to go. I'm like, no, Denise, I just need you for another half hour.
I loved how she was slouched down like this. She was like this.
She was slouched down. She had her script in her hand.
In a tanning salon or something.
Yeah, I was, that was a really frustrating and upsetting reunion.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think for everybody.
Do you like having the actresses on, or do you prefer, because on Beverly Hills, I feel like it works really well with having like people like Lisa Rinna and Denise who have this background. But then it's also fun to get like a Dorit.
Yeah, I think with Beverly Hills, that's been the one from the very beginning that's been different in terms of the women always knowing they're on a show and that they're making a show. And I think that machination is part of what the subtext of their resentment towards Lisa Vanderpump was. And especially at the end where it was like, I think there was some discontent about her having another show at the network that was also really big. So they felt like she thought that things didn't apply to her, or, so there's that artifice on Beverly Hills has always been there, or, whereas on the other show, it really is, Ramona's like, yeah, I'm having the girls to the Hamptons for 3 nights and I can't wait. And this is it. And we're shooting nonstop and, da-da-da-da-da. And it's not about who's getting glam before they go to Ramona's. Now, I find those disagreements very interesting and different on Beverly Hills. And I'm happy for that conversation. It's just a different universe in there.
The past couple of years, we've seen the mechanics change a bit with the breaking of the fourth wall. I feel like it's always happened a little bit, but it seems to me as a viewer that it's happening kind of more and more. Do you want it to happen more and more? Are you good with where it's at?
I'm good with where it's at. I mean, if anything, I would kind of now like to pull back on it a little bit. We, having been there from the beginning and wanting never to break the fourth wall and fighting it painstakingly, this is me from the beginning, and being very annoyed at in early, we opened season 2 of the Housewives of New York with all of them opening the New York Post. And I think Simon had said something rude to Cindy Adams about Jill or one of the women. And I could be getting this wrong, but it was, I was like, wait a minute. Why are they in now do we have to explain why they're in Cindy Adams? Because they're housewives. And now we're showing that on the show. And that to me was a breaking of the fourth wall, but it also was delicious because it was Simon trashing them to Cindy Adams. So it was funny. And they all cared so much how they were portrayed in Cindy Adams. But, and so that was an example of the New York Post. Page 6 has been a character on the New York Housewives since season 2, by the way. Whereas Orange County, it took us years to acknowledge. There would be occasionally Gretchen would say something in a blog, and then that would be a thing. And so I'm now taking you through the very slow evolution of the fourth wall being broken.
I love it.
And so, yeah, I mean, I think that it's been fun for viewers. We do it at reunions. I think when I have to go speak to someone in a bathroom. In Atlanta, we've had incidences where I'm like having to go. We have meetings with the women in bathrooms. I mean, with Kim and Croy, and then with Candy after the Phaedra thing was revealed. So I think that the fourth wall breaking and the reunions was something that people really enjoyed, and seeing them getting ready. So it's been a slow evolution, and then and I just think it's fun, but I think it's on a as needed basis. It's not something that we need to do every episode. We love the device of and we did it in Jersey season 3, I think, where we show something at the top of the season and then we say,
oh yeah, 3 months earlier,
weeks earlier.
Right.
We love a flash forward, and then let's take it back to happier times.
And I love a timestamp in general. Like on New York, there's nothing more fun than getting it's like 3:34 p.m. and then they're in another room fighting about something different.
Timestamp,
it's so good
that something is the shit is really gonna hit the fan. Yes.
Andy, I want to get a little more serious. I admire your career so much. You've been able to diversify, whether it be doing on-camera work. Now you have the book imprint, the shows. You've also done a lot of great advocacy for surrogacy, and I've been thinking about this a lot lately because I've been thinking, how have you? I don't know if this will make sense. How have you dealt with no's in the past? You're so successful now, but along the way, there had to have been stumbling blocks or no's that you've come up against. And
I think my only dream ever was to work in TV. I always wanted to work in TV, and I really wanted to work in TV news. And my ultimate goal was to be myself on TV. And I thought, wow, if I could get on a morning show, because that was the only place that people were really themselves back in the dark ages when I started, there wasn't a lot of, it wasn't like it is today, where everybody has their own brand and they're their own person and they're on social media and whatever, podcasts and the whole thing. So that was really the only outlet. And I remember I just found, actually, I had all these tapes transferred, and I found this audition tape that I made while I was at CBS News trying to be on camera. And I remember they were starting this talk show about soap operas, and I auditioned, and I was interviewing all these soap stars anyway for the morning show. I was so bad, and I had this clunky ponytail, and I looked terrible. And this woman was like, and I was told several times, you will never, ever make it on camera. And don't, stop trying, basically, they told me. And I was like, okay, and you have a wandering eye and this and that and the other, and fine. And then I was like, well, I will stop trying, and that's fine, because I love what I'm doing. So I think that I always had the base of loving what I was doing, that when these little opportunities started, I just took them and was excited. And so writing the blog for the Bravo website, I love to write. And I was like, wow, Bravo's going to give me a platform to write this blog. And then, wow, Bravo wanted to start a online show that they called Watch What Happens Live, that was on after Top Chef, or it was called Watch What Happens, which was the tagline for Bravo in the early years. And I did an after show for Top Chef, which I also was an EP of. So I knew the language. And then for Project Runway, which I also was an EP of. So those opportunities, I just was always so excited to take. And I always knew that I wasn't hired to do them because they wanted me to be a programming executive. So I also didn't over-index in thinking that I was valuable, because I was like, look, Kathy Griffin's on the channel, and she's a superstar and really funny and talented and the whole thing. And so, don't think you're the shit, because you're not. And I think that was a very important thing for me to be conscious of for my whole first, even when they picked up Watch What Happens Live to be a talk show. This was after I had done a few reunions, and they picked it up because it was so cheap to produce. And they were like, we'll see how it does. I was like, they picked it up for 12 episodes. And I was like, I had no faith that it would go on beyond the 12 episodes. So I think that my knowledge of ratings and stuff, and I was like, then I saw the ratings and I was like, oh, these are decent. Okay, maybe this could go on. But I did have a realization, and I know, and as I told Vicky Gunvalson, I was like, Vicky, we are all, sorry, hold on one sec. I said, Vicky, our time, it is not a God-given right that we all have to be on television. It just isn't. And my time is going to come. Like, I know that I will be pulled at some point. It could be next year, who knows? So I try to keep it all in perspective. And again, I don't know what your question was, and
you answered it. So are you conscious about diversifying? You mentioned my time on TV is not going to end, but you have what's the term, like hand in bunch of pots, or I don't know what that term.
I am always conscious of diversifying.
So have you always had a business mind too?
Yeah, I think that I always just thought, okay, well, if you lose your job, I always, in my mind, I always thought, well, I would like to be a teacher. Like, if I could be a professor at NYU and teach kids about broadcasting or journalism even, which is what my major was, or now I guess I could teach other things. But, and I love to write. And so I have always been conscious of it, but I've only said yes to things that I thought that I could do and that I would be good at and that I wanted to do, because otherwise, if I don't want to do them, why am I going to do them? So the radio was a great opportunity. I was like, wow, I can do long form interviews. That's something that I've always wanted to do. Writing books. I always wanted to write books. And then when they said, would you like, do you want to work with us on an imprint? That seemed so cool to me.
Yeah.
And then producing stuff on my own. I've been very picky about shows that I'm producing on my own. And Bravo's group chat is Bravo's chat,
which I think is great. I think it's a great show. Yeah.
And I'm really excited about it. And I think they extended it. It was only going to be on for 10 episodes. And now they just picked it up for 10 more. And people seem to like it. And I absolutely love it. And
do you imagine that ever going into studio, or do you think it's just going to be?
That's a good question. I don't know. And the great news is, I think that's part of the reason why they could do it so inexpensively and they can bang it out. And also, I think that show works as 4 boxes.
Yeah. It must just, I don't know, as someone myself kind of trying to create the career I want, it must be so exciting to have all of these successes. And I don't know.
It's really cool, but I think that to me, and like for me, I never lose focus of the biggest thing in the pot for me is the Housewives and Watch What Happens Live, and they feed each other. And my success has been so dependent on the Housewives that if the Housewives went away and Watch What Happens Live went away, thankfully I have the radio or I have something else that I could do. But I also don't want to lose focus on that main thing.
The moneymaker.
So your moneymaker is this podcast, and then everything else that comes off of it is such a gift because you can tour. I'm assuming that when life was normal, you were touring, and eventually you're going to write a book. And then there's, there are going to be other things that come from this.
I have a book proposal ready, Andy, whenever.
Really? Well, you need to send it to me.
I'll have to, I think my agent might have sent it to your editor, but.
Okay. Well, we need to make sure of that.
Yeah. It's good too. I feel like, I mentioned hearing all these no's. I hearing all these no's. I had sort of like a come to Jesus or like a frustrating week last week where I got a couple of rejections on the proposal, and it's still out to other publishers and stuff, but I feel like I
haven't gotten it, so you need to make sure.
I feel like I'm shouting at gatekeepers, like I'm shouting like, this is a good idea. Like I know my audience will want this.
All it takes is for you to find the one person that believes in you and knows you, and that's all it takes. You just need one person. And so I had one person who was like, I think this guy could host a web show on BravoTV.com. If that person had not existed, who was Lauren Selaznick, who ran Bravo for many years, if she hadn't have been there, I would probably still be I guess I would still be an executive at Bravo. Happily, I would be, I don't know.
Were you a talk show junkie growing up? Like I study
Major.
these talk shows. Like I
Oh my
obviously
God.
study Watch What Happens
But you know
Live.
what's funny? When I was a producer at CBS This Morning for 7 years in the 90s, and then I produced 48 Hours at CBS News. I kind of went back and forth, and so I loved talk shows, and I've seen probably 85% of every episode of the Oprah Winfrey Show over 25 years of the run. And I love Donahue. I was a caller on Donahue once. I was on an episode of Sally Jesse asking a question. But I was offered in the 90s, I got offered jobs making, I'm going to say, like 3 or 4 times the money I was making at CBS News to go work at Sally Jesse and Geraldo. Those were 2 jobs, 2 shows that offered me jobs. And I was like, and at the time those shows had they were trash. They were considered trash TV. And I was like, this is not good. I'm going to hang in here until the right other thing presents itself. So that was a good lesson for me. I did not go for the quick money at that time because I thought it would be a bad look.
So who do you think is great in terms of talk show hosts? Like I had, one of my favorites is Rosie O'Donnell. I worshipped her talk show. I grew up watching her talk show. I think it was great.
Yeah.
And I love you, of course. And I always say like, Kelly Ripa is so fucking good at her job. Like I think people don't realize how difficult that is. Like, and Kathy Lee too, and Regis. Like I watch old clips on
Lee, the best.
Oh my God. I just had her on the show and it was the best day. It was so exciting. But yeah, I think there's a skill to feeling like you're the friend of an audience that people maybe don't realize. And
I think also you have to be a fan and engaged.
A genuine fan. People can tell when it's bullshit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there was a moment actually in the run of Watch What Happens Live. It was a few years in where I really hit a wall and I started to just view the shows as I was just trying to get through them. And that is a bad thing. And we got research back on the show at one point, and there was a very small group of people who said, he seems like he's phoning it in. And when I saw that, I was like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? Right. This is your dream right now. Do not mess this up. So that was a huge wake-up call for me. But in terms of talk show hosts that I like right now, I think we are not necessarily in the golden age of talk shows. I don't watch many. I think Kelly is amazing. I think Wendy during Hot Topics is amazing. I think some of her takes are so insane and out of the blue that makes it really kind of funny.
And to sit in a chair for 20 minutes off the top and just talk.
It's incredible. And Kelly, the other day, Ryan called in sick and she texted me before the show. She goes, I'm alone today. And I was like, oh my God. I go, well, I turned on my ring light. I was like, call me if you need me. I'm home. It was, she just did it. But I was sitting there. I was like, she's amazing.
She's amazing.
She can just sit there and talk, and she has great stories. And but I would say that the golden age. I mean, Rosie, I was a huge fan of. I love The View. I mean, The View is amazing, and I love going on The View. I love The View, and that's why that book about The View was so great. It's a Housewives reunion every day live, And
the View has the same thing that I think the Housewives has, which is the history of it. And people who've been watching from the beginning, it's like to me, The View is sports. Like when we get a new cast or somebody leaves or something, and same with Housewives too. But it's like, those are my sports. Like I get so excited when I find out, when Rosie came back to The View, oh my God, my mind was blown. And then she's going to be sitting there with Whoopi fucking Goldberg, and it was and The View works too.
I co-hosted once during that time when she came back, and they were like, here, we're going to give you an IFB. I was backstage standing there with Rosie, and they go, we're going to give you an IFB. And I go, oh, really? What is this? And they go, would you all, and Rosie goes, you don't need that. Don't put that in. You don't. And I was like, oh my God, what war have I just stepped into? Rosie's like, they try to give us all IFBs and da 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 da. I was like, okay, I don't want an IFB. Like, it was crazy.
You, to me, have the
You know,
similar
Barbara Walters reamed me out once on The View, like horribly.
on air or
On air. I said I was on the day after the Oscars, and she was talking about how she didn't like or understand American Hustle. And I suggested that perhaps it wasn't a generational thing because my mom also didn't get American Hustle.
and
Basically, I had just told Barbara Walters that she was old on TV. And so they went to commercial right after that. And
I'm like giddy right now listening.
When I tell you almost lunch, and you can see it, it is on. We showed the clip on Watch What Happens Live. I gave myself the jackhole that day because I was so upset that I had ruffled the feathers of the queen. And she went and there's that shot of the steady cam going around the table, like when we come back, da 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 da. She turns to me and is yelling at me, and how dare you insult me on my own show? What are you thinking? Jenny McCarthy grabs my leg and says she's never going to remember this in 10 minutes. Don't worry, this is going to pass. And Sherry's like, it's okay, it's okay. They were on either side of me, and they were like, and I was like, oh my God, like and Bill Getty came out and he's like, everything's good, everything's good. And they're like doing Q&A with the audience string. And I'm like, what do I do? I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like, I thought this was a show about different generations with different points of view. Like,
we're supposed to give our view. Yeah,
exactly. I sent her flowers. It was.
Did you ever hear back after the whole thing? Like, did she forgive you, you think, or forget it? She probably forgot it. Yeah.
I do think she forgot it.
Yes. You know, you mentioned the View book, and I really want a book like that about the live years, because I feel like there's some drama that happened behind the scenes.
Live with Kelly?
Yeah. Like the whole, starting with Regis and Kathy Lee, and then going. Andy, I could talk to you forever, and I've taken up way too much of your time. I'm sorry. I'm going to let you go. The last thing I just want to ask is about you had Ben, and I don't know, is there any advice you could give young gay couples that are maybe interested in surrogacy?
Is that I was thinking about this with you, Danny, and I want you to think about having a kid. I think you would be a great dad. Good. Start saving your money now.
Is there even like a specific,
you know what?
That's a stupid question, maybe.
No, it's actually not a stupid question. And there are a lot of books. I think, there's a book by a woman, Kim Bergman, who wrote about the whole process. And there are organizations that help gay people, match them with surrogates and whatever. And I think the truth is, I don't know. And it's a range. And
probably all depends too. Yeah.
But then the other thing is there are some people who have, lesbian friends or straight friends who say, I'm going to carry this child for you. I will be your oven, which is what a surrogate is. And then, that changes the financial cost of it. So there are many ways, and of course, adoption. And, but I will say that you should, if it's something that you want to do, it's something that you should do. I think you should wait. I really waited. I am old. And I waited until I was old to do it, but that's okay because I couldn't see myself when I was 40 having a kid. In my mind, I was like, I know that I want this, but now is not the time. I'm building my career. I'm building my life.
So was there a moment?
To save money.
A moment where you thought this is the time?
My 50th birthday was encroaching. Was coming. It was like the year before my 50th birthday. And I was dating someone who had different priorities from me and who, not different priority. He was at a different place in his life. And he didn't want to settle down and have kids. And I basically was like, okay, if you do this, you have to do this. You have to really seriously think about this. So then I did. I was like, I'm going to do this. And I just did. And by the time of my 50th birthday party, I was pregnant. And I will never forget, I was taping a Southern Charm reunion, and I got my surrogate FaceTimed me from her doctor's appointment, which I couldn't. She was in LA and I was in New York, so I couldn't go to all of her appointments. And I saw the first sonogram during the lunch break of the Southern Charm reunion, and I was crying, and I ruined my makeup, and I focused on nothing else for the rest of the reunion but like, oh my God, I'm having a baby. And then like I did a Shaw's reunion soon after, and Reza was talking about having a baby, and I was like, I'm having a baby, but I can't say anything. I was so excited. So anyway.
It's such seeing you and Anderson, it's so weird because growing up, I never got to see gay people in media who have kids. And I grew up always knowing that I wanted kids. Like even when I realized I was gay, it was like, I know I want kids.
Midwestern boy, right?
Right. I'm Ohio. Yeah. It's like, we just sort of raised to have kids.
Right.
And I've always wanted kids, but I never got to see it as a viable option. So it's been weird and exciting. Weird's not the right word, but to see you and Anderson, it's like, holy fuck, like 10 years ago, we didn't get to see.
It's
even
wild.
We talked about Rosie.
To think that he and I are going to be on New Year's Eve, co-hosting New Year's Eve on CNN talking about our kids. Like
CNN, really, two gay men on CNN.
Yes.
Like, it's fucking wild.
It is wild. We're just two gay. We're just two gay dads. What can I tell you?
Everyone probably calls you daddy online, don't they?
They have before that. I mean, I used to get weird. I mean, on Father's Day, it was like on Twitter, everyone was like, daddy, daddy. I'm like, okay, you can't do this anymore because I am a daddy. So like, this is weird. But no, I go over to Anderson's every weekend, and I turn to him on Saturday. I go, you realize that we're just now killing time between naps. Like, that's what we do. He's like, that's what I was thinking the other day. I go, well, that's what we do. And I mean, you got Kelly Ripa FaceTiming us. She calls herself Meemaw. She's like, Meemaw's here. Meemaw's here. Because it was so long ago that she had little kids. Now she feels like a grandma. It's funny.
I love it.
It's wild. It's a wild thing. It's a beautiful thing. And it's totally grounded me and kind of changed my perspective. We had a crazy summer with COVID, and there was a lot of nonsense happening with the Housewives and a lot of drama from all ends. And it was really nice to be able to breathe with my son and really focus on him.
Do you think there'll be any more in the future, or are you?
I hope so. I hope so. I want to for him, you know.
Right.
I had an older sister, and it was great, and she and I were great buddies growing up, and so I want to for him. Yeah.
Well, it's been inspiring to watch as a gay man. It's like, it blows my mind. And you both are very open about it. It wasn't, we just getting to see photos of you guys in magazines in a tabloid with your kid. It's like,
it's crazy.
Amazing.
Thank you, Danny. You can do it too, and you will. And
we're going to. We're going to at some point, eventually. Maybe not quite yet, but we are. Andy, thank you. BravoCon, it didn't work out this year. Do you think it's coming next year?
I know, it was supposed to be 2 weekends ago. Was the
so there was a plan to do it.
There was a plan. There was a plan, man. We had great things in store. We have great things in store for the next one. I think I figured out what the Watch What Happens Live extravaganza is going to be, and it's going to be good.
It was so fucking fun. And I was so mad because last year I was interviewing on the red carpet, but I was hosting a panel before then. And you were the only person on the Watch What Happens Live red carpet that I didn't get to interview because you were the first one through.
I know I didn't get to meet you.
And I was, Okay, quick lightning round.
Were you at our taping that night?
I was like on that carpet. I came late to the taping. Yeah, I got there late or the second half of that, which it was wild though and so much fun. The whole event it blew my mind. I thought it blew away my expectations, and it was intimate and fun, even though it was a huge event.
It's going to be even better next time, yeah.
Okay, quick lightning round because I'm out of time. Favorite Mariah Carey song?
Heartbreaker.
Family Karma, are they coming back? They're coming back, right?
I think they are, yeah. People love that show.
Sexiest Man Alive, if you were choosing for People magazine, who would you choose?
Wow, good question. I think Daniel Craig is kind of always the sexiest man alive. Yeah. And in person.
You've had a lot of sexy people on Watch What Happens Live. Do you get a little distracted sometimes? Or are you just like sitting there?
Sometimes.
Even with women, it's like so many beautiful celebrities. You must just be
I would say like J-Lo is so crazily beautiful. Like it kind of blows you away. And yeah, there've been a few guys that I'm like, wow. And the first time Ricky Martin was on, I was like, I was like sweating. Yeah.
Yeah. I had Cynthia Bailey on my show, and just seeing her cheekbones in person, I was like, this is like, your cheekbones are unreal. Andy, this was such an honor and delight. I'm sorry I took up so much of your time. That was, I don't want to keep you any longer. I've kept you forever. Okay. I love you. Thank you.
Thanks, Danny.
Thank you for everything. We all thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Andy. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.